A lot of people talk about how lucky Kobe Bryant was to be a Laker. I actually don't see it that way. I think it was a detriment to him and to his overall legacy.
Agreed.
I think they actively kind of sabotaged his career in multiple different stages, and one of which being the roster they surrounded him with, and the coach that they picked with Mike D'Antoni, for the twilight years of Kobe's career. Like the Lakers essentially admitted, like, we don't have the roster to compete at all. So we might as well just give Kobe the money and let him just draw in, sell tickets for us, like keep us,
Yeah.
somewhat newsworthy because of just his presence. If they were actually trying to build a championship caliber team around him at that point, he would have taken less, to your point.
All right. So you alluded to something I've thought a lot about, but it's just so amazing to me the difference. And this is something that people don't think about. And it could be for any sport with any player. The place you come into when you're talking about Kobe, and we both remember what it was like in the 90s when he got drafted, and you had Eddie Jones and Nick Van Exel, which I was a huge Nick Van Exel guy, by the way. You had them in front of him, and it was an era where teenagers coming out of high school weren't playing. It didn't matter if you were Kobe or Kevin Garnett or whoever else. It wasn't like how it is today. The difference that he had to fight through just to get on the court. And then later in his career, like you said, the mismanagement. And this is bizarre where you have a all-time great player like Shaquille O'Neal and you trade him for a bag of chips and Lamar Odom. I mean, it's just a joke. And even Phil Jackson, who I really respect Phil Jackson, and I guess I like him, but he held Kobe back. Probably seen the story where Kobe had whatever it was, 9 straight 40-point games, 8, whatever it was. And then Phil went to him, we're losing the big guy. You've got to dial it back with this streak. And Kobe had 38 the next game and decided not to go for 40. And it's amazing the difference it makes when you're in an environment like that, where you're literally being told not to score. You're literally being told don't hold the team back with your star shining bright, versus something like LeBron and other people come into where it's all about you. We want to showcase you. What type of an impact in general, not even Kobe, LeBron, do you think that has on sports, the environment that you're drafted into? It can completely change a player's legacy.
Absolutely. And it might not be as prevalent in the NBA. I'm a big NFL fan too. I follow football every bit as closely as I do the NBA. And I mean, it can make or break your entire career, your entire legacy. I mean, especially if you're, like a quarterback or a wide receiver, like what kind of, offense are you getting drafted into? If you're a wide receiver, what kind of quarterback do you have there? And if you're a quarterback, what kind of structure do you have? What kind of coaching do you have? I mean, it can make such a great impact on you. And, some players, I mean, they just get the raw end of the stick, and some are kind of uplifted because they go to good situations, and they're managed better and they're presented with better opportunities. As it pertains to Kobe Bryant, as we know, he was actually drafted by Charlotte and traded to the Lakers on draft night.
Yeah.
And had he just stayed in Charlotte, had the trade never gone through, he would have gone to a team that was structured and built around him. I did a little examination of his first 2 years in the league, times that he was allowed to shoot like 18 times or more. And
My
he was,
favorite stat you've ever done, by the way. That's great.
and he was scoring like 24, 25 points per game when he got the freedom to shoot that amount of times. It's just he only got the ability to do it like 12 or 13 times in his first 2 full years. But when you look at all these other guys, the Michael Jordans, the Kevin Durants, the LeBron Jameses, they come in shooting 18, 19, 20 times a game from their first season in the league.
Yeah.
And then not only that, once Kobe finally became a starter, well, he had to defer to Shaquille O'Neal and play within the context and the confines of that triangle system for the first full 8 years of his career. So, I mean, if Kobe went to Charlotte, stayed there, and he could just become the focal point of an offense from year one. And Stephan, mind you, that Eastern Conference was garbage
All
for like
time
20 years at that point. From like
all time weak.
Right? Like that's the East that LeBron was running and going to all those finals. I think Kobe would have at least he would have won a minimum of 3 championships still in my estimation, if not more. He probably would have gotten to more than the 7 that he went to, but he also would have, to me, been the all-time leading scorer in NBA history. He
Yeah.
probably would have had a top 2 per game point per game average along with Michael Jordan. And I think he would have had at least three league MVPs. I mean, that's looking like a better career than what he actually had in LA because he gets denigrated and diminished all the time because he played with Shaq for those first 3.
Let me ask you this though, because I've thought about this a lot, and I feel exactly the same way you just said. And I feel like even if he would have went to the Clippers or the Bulls when his first contract was up, it would have been that kind of deal. But if that had happened, do you think that people like us would love him as much as we do? Because I feel like part of the reason I love him is because he had to overcome all this crap.
That's very fair. And that's part of just such a great point. People, and they say like, well, if Kobe could have just, somehow swallowed his pride a bit and stayed with Shaq longer, he would have won more. If he didn't push through injuries as much as he did, he wouldn't have had such a negative impact on his body. He would have stayed longer, had better longevity. His numbers would look better. But that's not the way Kobe Bryant was wired. Like the way his mentality and the way that he did things was the reason why he was as great as that he was. Like it couldn't have gone any other way that it did. So it's a great point, and I think Kobe Bryant, the reason he's such an impactful not just player but person, I think, and the reason he engenders such a fond following now, even after his death, and transcends sports really, is just because of the mindset that he had to accept the challenges and to overcome them, and he wasn't a perfect person. Like he was flawed. He was a flawed person at times, and obviously like had flaws in his game at times, but like just the way that he attacked the challenges and overcame, like that's the epitome of Kobe Bryant.
Even the last 3 years of his career after the Achilles tear, I mean, that was pretty rough, I'm sure, for you and for me watching it. Just because the team around him was garbage. He obviously wasn't himself. I think he played 6 games the first year back, and then 35 the next. Actually, Skap, you remember though the second year back after the Achilles, he was leading the league in scoring for like the first month of the season. It's
Yep.
horrible shooting percentage, but when he had his last game and he dropped 60, I said, you know what? The last 3 years were all worth it because it just felt perfect.
And I think Stephan, you were in the building for that game,
I was just,
right?
yeah, I was just going to ask. You were as well, correct?
That's
Yeah.
right. Yep. It was. I actually, my mom is a big Kobe fan, but she doesn't fly. So we went to his third to last game ever together in New Orleans, and we drove from Pittsburgh together. And the tickets were much more reasonable, of course, as you can imagine, in New Orleans than they were for that finale in Staples Center against the Jazz. And so my mom and I sat about 2 or 3 rows off the court and
Oh,
like at
wow.
like mid court, like right behind the Lakers bench.
Wow.
And you could see when Kobe came off, like it was apparent that he really wasn't planning on playing the fourth quarter because they entombed him in ice. Like he had like this saran wrap running from his like shoulder down to his wrist on both arms, his entire like knees and calves just like wrapped in saran wrap and ice. And I mean, this guy he basically couldn't move, and the whole arena just stood and were chanting for him, from the basically the beginning of the fourth quarter to the midpoint, and he begrudgingly like had the trainers tear off all the ice and stuff, and ran out and chucked up a couple more shots. But I remember I showed up very early in the day. Then I think it was 3 days later in LA. And I was, like the second or third person in line outside the door waiting to get in. And I was talking to these 2 guys from Sacramento that came down for the game. And it became apparent that I was a Kobe historian and a huge fan. And they asked me what my expectations were for the game. And I said, you know what? Like just seeing him a few days ago, he can barely move.
Yeah.
I would love it if he could score 30. But like, I just hope that he doesn't embarrass himself. Like, I don't want like
That's how I
15
felt
or
too. Yeah.
right. Like, I just don't want 15 or 20 points. And wouldn't you know it, that son of a bitch went out and scored 60. Like it, and the last 15 points and the game winner,
It
it was
was
just, it
insane.
was a microcosm of his entire career, like fighting through the obstacles and the challenges and the adversity to produce something truly special.
Oh man. And I got to tell you my story with that game. So I was working on a property. I had flown into Salt Lake City, Utah that morning at like 6 a.m. I'd left my car there because I was working on a property, and I was driving back to Northern California from Salt Lake City. And for those that know the West Coast, you drive through a town called Elko, Nevada. And on that 8 hour drive driving, I was like, I knew the game was that night. And I was like, I've watched this guy for 20. I can't miss his last game. So I pulled over at a Marriott in the middle of nowhere in Elko, in a Fairfield Marriott. I bought a ticket last second. Then I kept on driving instead of stopping in Sacramento. I kept on driving to San Francisco, flew down, got there right before game time. And that was the most incredible sporting event that I've ever. Similar to yourself, actually. I'm not even making it up or kidding with you, but somebody I was talking with them before the game, and I said, I just hope he gets. I said, I hope he gets 20. And then it didn't start out good. Remember, he was missing some shots at first,
Yep.
and that second half. How did you feel walking out of there? Because walking out of there, I just felt like I was in a cloud.
It's arguably the pinnacle of my life that I was that
Yes,
I was
let's
that I was in
go.
that
Let's
and
go.
I say it only half jokingly because like there were obviously at Staples Center, so there are these marquee celebrities and like very successful famous people all over the place, and they kept showing them on the jumbotron like throughout the fourth quarter, and they looked like little kids, like they were having the best day of their lives
Yeah.
too. But that was just the magic of that moment. It was I listened to I guess it was no, Pardon the Interruption with Michael Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser the next day. And Wilbon said that, I've been covering sports for 30 years. I've been to everything, Super Bowls, Olympics, World Series. That was probably the most electric live event, sporting event that I've ever been to. So, I mean, that really just says it all, I think.